Hey everyone, welcome in, welcome back. It is Laura from Tenacious Taurus Tarot and Astro Insights, and I was asked to share with you a very important message for the collective. And so we are in some very strange, interesting cosmic shifts right now. We are in between eclipse gateway portals. We do have Venus retrograde. We have Mercury now retrograde, joining the Venus retrograde. We've got all kinds of aspects playing out this week with the sun, which is all about illumination. We're going to have this Kazemi between Venus retrograde and the sun this week. And the twin flame collective energy was pretty loud. And so I was out running some errands yesterday with my youngest daughter. And we ran into my ex, her father. And it's been quite a while since they've had any communication, any contact. And it's been quite a while since I've really had any communication and contact. And so it was a very surreal experience. It was interesting, to say the least, but I did feel like a major clearing of some karma, especially connected to self-worth, self-value. I'm not sure that my daughter even felt very much affected, or so she said. She wasn't very much affected. And it was just interesting. It was very interesting. And so I kind of sat with that. I had to do some self-reflecting in regards to that divine encounter. It was almost like the divine brought us together for that moment to kind of test the waters, I want to say, test the energies. And I was sitting with my archetype deck and I was shuffling cards, asking my guides, like, what was this all about? Because I know there's a lot shifting with the twin flames, with a lot of the divine feminines that I have been connected with. There's been a lot of strange encounters with either the counterpart itself or an ex or somebody connected to the counterpart. And so I was really asking, what is going on here, right? And so the cards that fell out, I got the mask. And so this is kind of interesting, right? And we're going to go into depth with these messages, and I'm going to pull deeper in with the tarot. But the first card that fell out was the mask. And so there's always two sides, right? We live in a dualistic world. It is a dualistic nature. And so there's two sides to the mask, right? We wear many masks throughout the day, throughout our lives. We see the shadow side of the mask and we see the light side of the mask. And so this really is going to be a message, I feel, of duality. Because below the mask, the card that fell out was the sword. And once again, you see the shadow qualities of the sword. You see the light qualities. And so dualistic energies, right, again. And so you do see the moon. You kind of see the eclipse energy. So we just went through a full moon lunar eclipse, a total lunar eclipse in the sign of Virgo. And we are going to have a solar eclipse, a new moon eclipse, in the sign of Aries. I believe it's on the 29th. And so we're kind of in between these eclipse gateway portals. And so right now we're kind of traversing through the darkness of duality to get back to the light. And so we're heading into the spring equinox portal as well this week. And so the sword of truth, the sword that severs, it is a double-edged sword. On either side of the sword, are you ready for this, guys? We got to the left of the sword, we got the energy of the queen. And so there is some type of ancient truth coming forward. As you can see, you see the full moon connected to the queen. And so the moon energy is the gravitational pull of the divine feminine collective, right? And so on the right side of the sword is the king. And so I do feel there is a rise connected to the divine masculine collective, but it's like a hold up, wait a minute, we got one last hitch here to get through. So let's go deeper in with the tarot and let's talk about these cards on the table, okay? Okay, so we first got to talk about the card of the mask. This card has come out quite a bit in the readings recently, connected to the twins. And so every time this card comes out, I do get a little bit of a different message because every time the card comes out, there's a little bit more that's been revealed on the journey, right? And so the mask, it represents the persona, it represents the performance and the reveal, right? The reveal as we come out of the shadow qualities of the mask. And so when we look at the mask, we often think of, hey, a mask is something that kind of conceals our identity, but the mask also holds the potential to reveal our true essence, right? And that's the light side of the mask. And so right now I feel the mask energy is kind of giving voice to what we have suppressed. And we all wear masks. We all have something hidden deep inside of us, whether it's a truth or emotions that we've repressed, and a mask kind of allows us to hide that, right? And so the light qualities, right? The light side of the mask, I feel, is really kind of revealing in these energies what's been rejected, so we can fully embrace our authenticity. Right now, the shadow side, right, the shadow side is the darkness, which is basically the aspect of further concealing our truth or staying trapped in an illusion, right? And so the mask really can be also a costume of empowerment, right? The mask, we all wear many masks, we all play many roles throughout the day, throughout our lives. And really, this is a mask we can wear, or a costume, I want to say, of empowerment. And so the mask really is just a tool. It's like a tool in our spiritual toolbox that can allow us to embody the parts of ourselves that we have denied. And so right now, I think we're all being considered to go back to the concept of the original face, who we were before all of our societal conditioning, before the ego attachments, even before birth, right? And so, connected to the twin flame, I feel both counterparts wear masks. We all wear masks. Sometimes we wear a mask to protect ourselves. Sometimes we wear a mask out of fear, of vulnerability. But basically, the twin flame journey as a whole is all about unmasking and revealing the soul beneath the layer. So now let's go further, because the sword card was right below the mask, and the sword is all about cutting through illusions, right? And so the sword can be looked at as like the blade that separates illusions from truth, right? Illusions keep us in the dark. Truth brings us back into the light. And so this is like a weapon. It's also a tool in our toolbox. It's the tool of clarity. And so this does represent decisiveness and truth. And so the blade energy, or the sword, the blade on the sword actually separates one reality from another. And so we're kind of at this pivot point, marking a moment of choice. And transformation is a choice, right? And so the lighter aspects, and you see the lightning bolt, and so there's almost like a tower quality to this card. But the lighter aspect is really the energy of cutting through illusions. It's acting with integrity, and it's acting with honesty, right? Because the sword can represent the sword of truth, or it can represent the sword of lies. And the shadow element and the dualistic shadow side is the representation of maybe making a hasty decision, or it could represent betrayal, especially if the sword is dull. Then it's basically like an ineffective tool or an ineffective weapon. And so really, to use the sword to cut through the illusions of the mask, it basically requires courage, right? It requires courage and responsibility to embrace our truth through strength and compassion, right? And so the sword is also this energy, I want to say, of writing our reality, because the sword can also represent the metaphor for like the pen and the paper, or the paintbrush and the canvas. And so we are here to write our own destiny through the choices that we make. And so connected to the twin flames, I do feel this represents, like I said, a tower moment. There's going to be a tower moment, or a cutting away of illusions in the connection. And we do have to use that energy of discernment to determine what is real and what is fear-based conditioning, right? And so fear is usually illusion. It's not intuition. And it is connected to our societal conditioning. So let's talk about the feminine, the divine feminine, the queen. So interesting. So the queen is the embodiment of grace, right? She's patient, she's kind, she's loving, she has a deep inner trust. And we see the full moon energy embodiment on the card. We see the snake, which represents wisdom, sacred knowledge. We see, I want to call that like a ruby. So interesting, a ruby. And then we see the lotus flower, right? We do see the lotus flower. And so there's something here coming up about the divine feminine blooming, or the wisdom that presides over the divine feminine really is about uplifting others with love and compassion. That is really the role of the divine feminine, to embody the light qualities of benevolence, courage, resolve, and stillness, right? Silence and stillness is the representation of the lighter qualities of the divine feminine. Now, we all have shadow aspects. The shadow side of the feminine can lean into pettiness or emotional reactivity or casting a shadow over others on the journey. And so really the embodiment of the queen is the embodiment of the ego in the world. But when the divine feminine is aligned with her destiny, she radiates trust and she radiates self-worth. And so right now we're in this portal of the feminine energy, or Venus retrograde in the sign of Aries, which is the sign of self. And so right now the feminine is learning to heal self-worth and self-trust issues. And so when the divine feminine is truly in her power, she doesn't chase, she doesn't beg, right? She trusts. She trusts the journey. She trusts her knowing that her energy alone is magnetic and transformative. And then we go to the king on the right side of the sword. And so this is the divine masculine ruler. This is the representation of the emperor. And so I do feel the king energy is the representation of the full spectrum of our human experience. And so we all have divine feminine and masculine within us. And so this is the energy of divine leadership rather than oppressive control, right? When I think of a true king serves his community, serves his kingdom with humility. A true king understands that power is a divine responsibility, right? And so I feel the light aspects being activated in the divine masculine collective is the energy of benevolence, divine leadership, service, and wisdom. But on the shadow side, there's going to be a lot of revelation connected to corruption, misuse of power, and fear-based control, right? And so basically the king energy, or the emperor, or the divine masculine must die. He must die to his ego in order to step fully into his divine purpose, because when the divine masculine is disconnected from his truth, is disconnected from divinity, he's going to act out of the energy of fear and control. And so right now the divine masculine's journey is one of surrender and alignment in order for him to find his true path and to lead with purpose and with love. And so when I look at all of these cards kind of sitting together, all of these archetypes together, there is a major shift. There is a realignment happening with the inner masculine and feminine, which will then be reflected externally in our reality. And so right now I feel there are illusions here, right? Because we see the feminine and the masculine on either side. The mask, I feel, is the main energy here that we're kind of working with. And so right now there are illusions that both the divine feminine and the masculine must strip away in order to see themselves clearly and each other clearly. And so the sword is kind of in between them. And as you can see the way it's placed, we get the lighter side of the sword on the feminine side and the shadow aspect on the masculine, which tells me the feminine is stepping into the light, shining her light, being that lighthouse. And the masculine is working through the shadow aspects of leadership so he can step forward and lead with purpose. And so right now I feel there is clarity. There's a cutting through fear, cutting through illusions. And I do feel like, it kind of feels like throughout this process, the masculine has kind of turned his back against this connection. But as the queen, the divine feminine turns towards her journey of sovereignty, knowing her worth, standing in the light, standing in the grace of that full moon eclipse in Virgo. And Virgo is the energy of divine feminine. I do connect Virgo to Mary Magdalene energy. And so right now I feel the masculine is learning to shed the shadow aspects and learning to lead with grace, not from control, but from service and wisdom, right? And so together, all of these archetypes, I feel, are really revealing a very sacred dance. I want to say energetic dance between the twin flames, and the masculine and feminine, I feel, are both unmasking themselves. And this is the sword that yields truth. It yields wisdom. So both of the twins can come together and step into their divine power. And it's not about force. It really is about trust. And so the feminine is the light. The masculine is the shadow. And so right now I feel these energies are really revealing a lot that's happening in this eclipse gateway portal. And so let's go a little bit deeper by pulling some tarot cards. And I did grab the Wild Unknown tarot deck today. We're going to pull in with these cards. And look at that. On the bottom of the deck, we do get the Emperor. And so I do feel like a burning away of some karma here. So let's ask, what still needs to be unmasked, connected to the twins? So we're gonna cut to the chase. We're going to go into the sword energy. We're going to ask what needs to be unmasked in this twin flame connection. We're going to ask what still needs to be unmasked on the divine feminine side, which is the Daughter of Cups. What still needs to be unmasked on the masculine side. So we get the Eight of Pentacles, we get the Magician, and we do get the Five of Swords. And so the Five of Swords to the Magician and the Eight of Pentacles to me is telling a story of a manipulative web that the masculine has kind of woven here, right? There's a web. We see the cheetah energy on the Magician card. And so I do feel the masculine does have what it takes to go the distance, but there is, I feel, some type of entanglement here that the masculine is going to need to work through. There could be self-sabotaging behaviors here. We're going to go a little bit deeper, but let's combine the energy and see what is being unmasked between the twins in this connection. Okay, and we get the Nine of Cups, and it kind of come out sideways. And so there's a block here, I want to say, to wish fulfillment. And the bottom of the deck, we do get the Eight of Wands. And so I just feel there's a lot of downloads. There's a lot of divine messages coming through. So let's talk about the masculine's energy first. Let's get these cards up so you guys can see them. So the masculine's energy, we get the Eight of Pentacles. We see the spider in the middle of the web. We get the Magician, which is representative of Gemini, Virgo energy. So we're going to get these cards up front and center for you guys here. And we're going to talk about the masculine's energy first. What I feel is such a deep, intricate pattern here of conditioning. That's really what I feel, a deep pattern of conditioning here, especially with the spider web depicted on the card, right? Usually the Eight of Pentacles is talking about collaboration, putting in the work. I just feel there's some type of entanglement here. And I do think it is connected to past conditioning, some type of entanglement. And so there is this energy, I feel, of both creation and entrapment. And I do think it's going to take hard work and mastery to come out of the shadow energy of the king, right? And so I also feel there could be this energy of overworking, perfectionism, almost like a false sense of control, right? Is really what I feel here. And so there could also be this shadowy element with the Five of Swords here about the masculine feeling like, I just want to say, feeling like he has to earn his worth, or he has to weave a web of material success and validation to compensate for his deeper insecurities here. I also feel the masculine could be caught in a web of his own fears, ego wounds. And I do think he's really worked hard to construct that mask or that ego identity. But is it truly him? I feel that's a big message. Is the mask built from conditioning, survival, and fear, or is it truly him, right? And so right now I feel there's a lot of unconscious powers surrounding the masculine with the Magician. And I do think this represents the truth, kind of the truth behind the mask, right? I do feel that's what that represents, is the truth behind the mask. And so he does have all of the tools that he needs to manifest, create, and transform. But it's like he's still kind of hiding in the shadow, right? It's like he's the illusionist. He's the illusionist trapped in self-deception, manipulation, even if it's unintentional. It doesn't have to be intentional, but there is a deep sense of disconnection from his purpose with this Five of Swords. It's like a deep internal battle within. Or he could be dealing with somebody external where there's a big ego clash with the truth of his purpose as well happening right now. And so I kind of feel the masculine is really being asked, is he using his power to create or to control? And that's what needs to be unmasked here. And the Five of Swords really is saying there is a conflict here, or a power struggle, or even a mask of self-sabotage, right? I do think a lot of the masculines are in fear of losing, whether it's losing control, losing stability, losing the divine feminine, or there's also this fear of even being vulnerable or surrendering control. But ultimately, nobody's in control. But I do feel this strongly too. The divine masculine probably feels like he must win at all costs, even if the victory comes at a very high price. And so what really I feel needs to be unmasked for the divine masculine in this message is the illusion that power is control. Rather, surrender is actually true power. And so there is almost an entanglement here being unmasked, connected to self-worth and material success and external validation. And so the mask is being stripped away, connected to emotional vulnerability and being truly seen and fully stepping into his divine purpose. And so there is a deep battle here that I think the masculine is going through between his ego and his higher self, almost like he's been fighting for control versus trusting in divine alignment. So let's go a little bit further here and let's talk about the energy of the divine feminine. And so for the divine feminine, we just got the one card out for the divine feminine. And so I do feel the unmasking energy is connected. It is connected to overcoming fear of commitment or overcoming fear of embracing a life partnership, because the swan energy, swans mate for life. And so there is, I do feel an offer coming in, and we see the cup above the swan, which is for me an indication of divine downloads. And so swans mate for life. This is a very powerful symbol of life partnership, devotion, transformation for the divine feminine. And it's not just about romantic love. The twin flame connection is a deep soul bond of transformation. And so there could be something connected to youth here that has made the feminine hesitant, or like an inner child wounding, because the Daughter of Cups is the energy of the Page of Cups. And so that's child energy. And so I do feel there's a fear on the feminine side of being fully open, fully seen, and fully met. And so I think there is a deep desire for union here. But there's also an equally deep fear of what it means to surrender to that union, right? And so the heart longs for love, but I feel the feminist is still learning to trust what she's longing for. And so there's vulnerability, right, in expressing emotions. Cups are emotions, in believing that maybe love can be safe. And so the devotion, I think there's fear that devotion will lead to abandonment. And I think that's kind of what is being unmasked, is this energy of like, am I actually ready? Or will I be left again? Will I be enough? And so I think right now it's the unmasking of the fear of being deeply committed and fully trusting in this connection because of the energy of fear of being left again. And so there is a lingering wound here of past betrayal, I feel, for the feminine, of abandonment and rejection that is kind of being unmasked in between these gateway portals, or a fear that, or a belief even that love must be earned, right? Connected to childhood rather than just simply being received. And so there is an understanding here being unmasked that true partnership does require vulnerability, and that really is true strength. And so we're going to break it down to the combined energy on the bottom of the deck, which is this Eight of Wands. And so this to me is unmasking communication, removing communication blocks. And so this really speaks loud and clear that it's time to clear the air. It's time to clear the energy of blocked communication, hesitation, and avoidance. This stagnation connected to communication, it does need to be released. And so the divine masculine needs to break free from his web of illusion, and he needs to speak his truth from the heart. And the divine feminine must be willing to express her feelings and her desires without fear of rejection or abandonment. And so this connection cannot move forward if silence and avoidance remains. And so this card is a card of fast moving energy. It is a card of direct communication, and it is indicating, I want to say, an influx of energy where everything kind of shifts, but only if both counterparts are willing to drop their masks, right? If they're willing to put down their swords, if they're willing to kind of speak openly. And then we did get this Nine of Cups sideways. So it's almost like they both have to admit that they want this. They both have to admit, like, yes, this is my wish fulfillment. There could also be addictions here that kind of need to be surrendered. And so I just feel what really needs to be surrendered for wish fulfillment and for this union to flow is we've got to release resistance, right? And so I think the divine masculine has to release the illusion of control first and foremost to turn this card up, right? I do feel, and the divine feminine needs to trust and love. The true union between the counterparts on both sides is going to require a lot of emotional vulnerability, not just strength. And so communication is the key to dissolving these illusions. The longer the silence persists, the thicker the mask becomes, right? And I know from my own personal journey, there's been silence for a very long time, and I don't believe my ex is my counterpart at all by any means. I do believe it was a very significant soul contract to help me open up my heart this lifetime. Each journey is individual and unique, but there's been like zero communication with the counterpart. It's been many years, and so the mask is pretty thick there for my own personal journey. But I feel we are kind of being asked to open our heart. Cups is not about overthinking. Cups is about opening the heart. It is about expressing that emotional truth and moving forward without fear. And so I don't know if the divine masculine will move forward. Let's ask that question. Will the divine masculine move forward and step into his truth? Will the divine masculine move forward and step into his truth? I do believe he will. The World card to the Four of Swords. And so there is a rebirth process here happening with the masculine. I do believe he's completing karmic cycles. I do believe that's the case. And will the feminine embrace the love that she desires? Will the divine feminine embrace the love that she desires? Yes, she will. Justice. There is a balancing here, but it's going to require truth. It's going to require communication. And at the bottom of the deck, we do get the Mother of Swords. And so I don't know if the feminine has to extend an olive branch, but this is the energy of the Queen of Swords. And what I want to say is truth will prevail. I want to say prevail. And so right now, I think there's a big energy of breaking the cycle of avoidance. So that's kind of what I see going on in the message today.